While millions of people from Australia and the UK have been in the streets all week protesting against some of the movements and the laws that our governments have been passing, they might be about to sneak the most insane law of all time through that is going to affect 100 million people's money. Now, that is a massive statement, especially considering what kind of laws are already passed in both of our countries. Right now, the Bank of England is tirelessly working on a bail-in guide that would steal everybody's savings. In Australia, there is a very low probability that there will still be cash on the streets in just 5 years' time. Australia also just recently passed this law that is potentially going to be taxing your retirement accounts at 30% every single year, even if you don't sell an asset, which is kind of crazy. And then, of course, let's not forget, Australia also has a help to buy scheme where the government is a co-owner of your home. They own 30 to 40% of your property. But of course, all of these laws pale in comparison to what looks like could be the next law in our country. It's so insane. I didn't believe it was real until I saw this video.
Between the average size of households and the average size of a home is prompting experts to propose a tax on spare bedrooms. New research from Cotality revealed.
No, you heard that correctly. The Australian government is trying to pass a spare bedroom tax as we speak. And I didn't believe that video when I first saw it, but then I realized, wait a minute, Australia is not the only country talking about a spare bedroom tax. There's actually already a spare bedroom tax in England. So today we're going to be breaking down what exactly is going on in Australia, in England, and what this might mean for the rest of the Western world. Because let's not forget, these really strange, insane laws that have been passed recently, these aren't isolated events. When you start lining up the dominoes and you start having a look at the chronological order of when all of these things have been talked about and when all of these laws are being passed. So again, this is the most recent law from Australia, call for households with spare bedrooms to be taxed to free up the market amid homes shortage. Now again, this isn't necessarily a new idea. This is an idea that's already been implemented in a couple of different countries around the world. But we can see it's got a lot of backlash already in Australia. Some are labeling this incredibly unfair. Some are even going a lot further than that. And again, it's really tough to stay away from conspiracy theories when we have such wildly insane laws being proposed. But let's give our government the benefit of the doubt. Let's try to figure out whether there's any sense or good ideas in this new law or this new thing being talked about. So we can see head of Australian research, Eliza Owen, said that questions are being raised about how well the housing market is serving real demands. Now, again, that's the line I want to keep coming back to in today's video. Supply and demand. Again, the price of everything is dictated by supply and demand. This is again why our government is coming in Australia and taking a 30% stake in homes. I didn't joke, I didn't lie. That is a real law that's being talked about right now in Australia. It's called the Help to Buy scheme. And again, as you can see, traditionally, the borrower can deposit 2% of a loan. Imagine getting a loan for 2% down. This is what's happening in Australia. And they're saying, look, you're not just going to engage into a financial contract with the bank. We can see the bank only makes up 58 to 68% of traditional home loans. For the people who are eligible for this new government loan, you can see the government would be taking a shared stake of 30 to 40% in a person's home. Now, again, obviously, that's going to raise some eyebrows. And there's all sorts of wild theories as to why that is happening. But let's kind of cover the most recent news about this bedroom tax while I'm talking about it, because it's kind of wild. So let's have a look at what's happening. A land tax model removes the initial large upfront cost replacing it with an ongoing land tax that is based on the value of the land of the property. So what we're talking about here is in Australia right now, that large upfront cost, that is law. And in Australia, we call that stamp duty. So if you ever want to buy a home in Australia, you have to pay something called stamp duty. And this, as we can see by this little guide, it ranges from between 4 to 6% on the value of the property. So of course, if you've got a $100,000 home, $4,000. If you want to buy $1 million home, that stamp duty cost that you pay the government, it's $40,000. This has been law for decades in Australia. This is normalized. People don't think twice about it in Australia. And again, this is really interesting how things are changing now, because this new bedroom tax law, the way they're trying to push this in is they're saying, look, we're going to remove stamp duty. Oh, that burdensome $40,000 fee you have to pay the government. Let's remove that. And this is the thing we're focusing on in the Australian media. But what's getting missed is what's actually happening. So we can see here, they kind of, I think, said a little bit too much here in this article, because they said, okay, we have land tax, we can remove that large upfront cost, but we'll replace it with an ongoing land tax. Oh, how about that? That's interesting. So they say, unfortunately, state governments are heavily reliant on stamp duty revenue and property tax more generally. It wouldn't be possible for the government to simply abolish stamp duty without another source of income. Politically, moving from a tax that applies to around 5% of voters who may transact on a property in a year to one that applies to 2/3 of voters who own a property is difficult. Here it is. Mr. Lawless said the missing piece of the puzzle, again, what's the puzzle they're trying to solve? They're trying to tax 66% of everybody in Australia who owns a home. The missing piece of that puzzle is ensuring there are enough types of housing for people who wish to downsize, as many homes being built nowadays are more suited for young families looking for an upgrade. So let's have a look at the reality and the reasoning for why our government thinks it's a good idea. Again, what's the key phrase we're going to be talking about today? It is supply and demand. For some reason, our governments can't figure out very simple supply and demand economics.
In households is made up of just 2 people, while the most common property is 3 bedrooms. It's suggested that a levy, along with the removal of stamp duty, may encourage shrinking families and empty nesters to downsize, freeing up supply.
So the terminology there is interesting, don't you think? Empty nesters. They're already trying to make homeowners who have a spare bedroom, which might be used as a study or something like that, they're trying to already paint them in this derogatory term, okay? Again, I want you to pay very close attention to that, because you can see this is kind of a common trend in Australia and England, because what is happening right now is that right now we're trying to pass lots of different crazy rules. Again, there is something called a super tax that's being passed right now. And the way that we're phrasing this super tax is by labeling it's just the rich, wealthy 80,000 families in Australia who are going to be paying this wealthy tax. Again, they like to use the they, them language. They're trying to paint an out group. They're trying to say these evil, wealthy people, oh, you know, they have 3 million Australian dollars in their superannuation account. Let's go and tax them. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, while we're talking about this supply and demand mismatch that our governments seem absolutely baffled by, or again, this could be deliberately so, I need to be really careful about what I say here. But if we're just talking about supply and demand, it's pretty clear. A lot of people are moving to the UK and Australia, people from other countries. Right now, it's a very hot talking topic in the news, so I'm not going to have an opinion on it, but it's just fact that the Australian government and the UK government welcomes a lot of people into its countries. And now I think this is kind of strange, because the government is openly saying there's a demand and supply problem with the housing market. So the solution is to not close the borders and slow the growing supply of people looking to buy a home. The solution is, why don't we just tax existing homeowners? Don't you think that's strange? Don't you think that's interesting? Again, why is the government proposing these insane laws, like taking a 30 to 40% stake in your home? Why is the government trying to introduce a bedroom tax for homeowners? If there's such a housing crisis, why don't we fix the root problem? We build more homes and we slow down the record breaking influx of people into the country. Again, no opinion there on that topic. That's just the facts. You can see the charts are what the charts are showing us. The data is what the data is showing us. And again, for those who are not aware, the housing crisis in Australia, it is a real problem. I'm not saying it's not a real problem. That's one of the, no, it's not really, but it is a reason why I choose to not live in Australia. It's because it's incredibly expensive. And I could see the writing on the wall when I left 4 years ago. Now, did I know that we would see 30% stakes in homes from governments, 30% taxes on retirement accounts happening in the year 2025? To be entirely honest, I thought it was maybe 6, 7, 8, or 9 years away. I'm surprised at how quickly this is ramping up, especially in the UK and Australia, and that should give you some real cause for concern. But let's not talk about concern. Let's look at the data. We can see it's incredibly expensive to live in Australia, and that is because of government policies. We can see 25 years ago, the average house cost 9 years of the average household income. Now they cost 16 and a half years of the average household income. Now, again, this data is even deceptive because you can see they're talking about average household income. That's mum and dad's wages combined. If you look at the real price of houses based on the average person's income, you can see some numbers and statistics that are even more mind-blowing. Again, this is a worldwide problem. You can see house prices are ballooning all around the world. This is not just an Australian problem. This is a UK problem. This is an Australian problem. This is a Canada problem. This is a European problem. I was just in Europe recently for 3 months, spent 3 months in Europe, and let's just say all of the rumors, all of the stereotypes, they're all true. It's incredibly expensive in Europe, that is for sure. We can see, if you actually look at the average income, okay, this is old data. The real data right now, the average property price in Sydney is 21 times the average person's income. That's kind of crazy. I want to actually show you what ChatGPT shows us because I was crunching the numbers before I got on this live stream, and it's kind of insane just how expensive the average home is in Sydney right now. As you can see, I asked it average house to income ratio for Sydney, Australia. We can see 15.3x. It's actually higher if you look at Sydney alone. I was crunching these numbers. Sydney ranks among the least affordable cities in the world. Medium house prices 10 to 15x. I know it's higher for a fact. Are you sure? I thought it was 21x. Again, with ChatGPT, I always encourage you guys to fact check it and never take anything you see at face value. So there you go. ChatGPT is now pulling the rug on me, and it's giving me 2 different numbers. Even 13x is incredibly high. And again, whether you're living in Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane or many of the major capital cities in Australia, it is getting incredibly expensive, and it is not slowing down, which again kind of brings me into the next part of this video. Okay, we've talked a little bit about the 30% taxes on retirement accounts in Australia. And some people genuinely do not believe me when I say things like that. They think, wait on a minute, this can't be law. I'm here to tell you it is. The Australian government is openly trying to tax you 30% on your retirement accounts, even if you do not sell a single share of whatever is in there. That's what an unrealized capital gains tax is. Let's break it down.
Two or older and voted for the Greens, they just sold you out. Greens have announced they'll support Labor's new super tax that will hit young people. It's marketed as just a tax on the rich, Yet here's the trick. The threshold isn't indexed, meaning that in enough years, inflation will eventually push you and everyone else into its claws. Young people shouldn't be sneakily pushed into the same tax rate as multimillionaires. Another scary bit of the proposal is a concept new to the Australian tax system. It's called taxing unrealised gains. That means the government wants to tax you on money you haven't even made yet. My personal opinion is that young people pay way too much tax. Your taxes should be getting cut, and the government should be going after multinational corporations dodging tax, not hitting you. So the government and the Greens should throw this whole tax bill for young people in the bin. At the very least, index the threshold so it isn't a tax on everyone, and abolish the tax on unrealised gains so you don't have to pay tax on money you haven't even made yet. Contact the Greens senators in your state and let them know you don't want them passing Labor's unindexed superannuation tax on money you haven't made yet.
Authorised, Malcolm.
It's honestly insane. So that's Malcolm Roberts, politician in Australia, who's been labelled a conspiracy theorist, far right-wing politician. And again, I personally just think Malcolm's talking common sense. Again, a 22-year-old person saving for retirement today will be included into what the Australian government is marketing as a super tax. Oh, this is only affecting 80,000 ultra-rich, ultra-wealthy Australians who have 3 million Australian dollars in their retirement accounts. Now, again, think about that for a minute. That's Australian dollars. US dollars, that's about 1.7 million. It's not that high when you really start thinking about things, especially when we start thinking about inflation. Because, of course, if we look at average property homes in Australia, literally 40 years ago, you could have bought an average size home in Australia for $30,000. And now think about what an average size home costs in Australia. It's kind of insane when you think about it, because right now, the average home is going for about $2 million. That's nearly at that $3 million threshold that the Australian government wants to tax you at 30% per year. Now, what I want to do next is I want to actually run some numbers that might scare you, because when we start thinking about this, a lot of people don't understand how a 30% unrealized capital gains tax might work. So for example, let's say in your retirement account, it goes up from 3 million to 4 million over a space of, let's say, 3 years. Now, all of a sudden, even if you do not touch your $4 million retirement account, the government says, hey, look at that. You've got a $1 million profit on paper. We want you to pay 30% of that to us. So then all of a sudden, even though you don't sell a dollar in your retirement account, the paper value is at 4 million. You have a paper gain of 1 million, and the government's going to make you pay $300,000 in tax to them. So then think about this. Where's that money going to have to come from? Most people don't have $300,000 lying around in the couch cushions that they can just pull out of the wazoo and say, here you go, Mr. Government. Again, this just once again shows our government really doesn't think through the laws that they're talking about. We already know in the US, the wealthiest country in the world, over half of baby boomers have $0 saved in their retirement account. And of the half that do have money in their retirement account, the average amount's $250,000. Australia is not as wealthy as the US. And we really think that laws like this is going to pass and it's going to fly. I think it's kind of really interesting. Innovative Potential in the chat says you can't retire on anything anywhere. You just keep working and you end up spending all your money and house equity on assisted living. And again, this is the sentiment that so many people correctly feel around the world today. Cost of living is literally at all-time highs. And obviously, a lot of people are concerned that we're seeing all of these really, strange predictions and rhetoric come out of some of the largest economic institutions in the world. Some people are now maybe starting to believe the World Economic Forum's very own prediction for 2030. Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, life has never been better. And again, for those who are completely unaware, the World Economic Forum also predicted that you will own nothing and you'll be happy by the year 2030. That is real. I've been shocked since I saw this little video from the World Economic Forum, but it's true, and it is their very own prediction that they made. And hey, I know it sounds inflammatory. you will own nothing and you will be happy. So inflammatory, I've got a ball squeak. I understand it, but again, like maybe when you start looking at some of these laws being passed in the Western world, where the government's saying, hey, we're going to come in and buy 30% of your property. If you combine that with the policies that the government is taking, such as printing money and lowering interest rates to make home prices artificially high, you need to really start asking yourself, what is the end goal here? If you were to put on a hypothetical thought experiment cap here and think, hang on a minute, let's think adversarially. If I were a government and if I wanted to take a stake in homes, how would I do it? Well, what I would do is I would drive property prices as high as possible. I would do that by printing money every single time we have a recession, by lowering interest rates to historically 7,000-year lows like they hit in 2020. And then I would, obviously, I would constrict property building. I would make it as difficult as possible for businesses and construction businesses and the construction industry to build houses. And then I would create a massive demand for the undersupplied market by opening up the borders and letting a lot of people into the country. Again, don't have a political opinion on that. I'm just saying, hypothetically, that's what I would do. And funny enough, this is the exact playbook that the UK and Australia has done over the past 2 decades. Really makes you kind of scratch your head and go, hang on a minute, is property the greatest investment that I've been told it is? I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. And this is why, personally, I think owning a home in the overpriced cities like London, Sydney, Melbourne, I think it's obviously incredibly scary, especially considering the fact that our governments are very openly telling you they want to execute a bail-in. This is a literal white paper from the Bank of England. They're openly talking about it. We've made a few videos on this. In the EU, they're literally publishing white papers on the European Central Bank's own website where they're saying there is now an urgent need to channel retail savings into European capital markets. Okay, I think the writing is on the wall here. Again, I think they're making it very clear. A ban on cash is coming. In Australia, there is a massive, massive movement to ban cash. I don't know if you guys are aware or not of that. But they're coming after the money in the bank. They're coming after cash. They're even coming after property. So that's why I personally believe that Bitcoin is your only solution to stay ahead and stay out of the reach of our governments. I think there literally is no other solutions, which is why I always tell you guys, buy Bitcoin, but please don't leave it on an exchange. A government will eventually come and slap a 30, 50, maybe 100% tax on that as well. That's why I always tell you guys to go get Bitcoin, put it into your own hardware wallet where only you can hold the keys to. Okay, again, there's a ton of different hardware wallets out there. Again, I think there's a ton of different great options for everyone. This is the first one I ever got way back in 2017. I got a Ledger. So again, put your Bitcoin into your own custody. Again, if you do want to get your hands on a Ledger, they're going to give you a massive discount if you use the link in the show notes. I believe they're going to give you $10 of free Bitcoin to buy a Ledger. And if you want something like a Trezor, you can see that you can get a Trezor. This is a Trezor Safe 5. It's a Bitcoin only hardware wallet. So again, for those who want a Bitcoin only one, you can grab one of those. You can get whatever color you want. They got orange, they got pink. You can pay with Bitcoin. And they're also going to give you 5% off if you use the link down below. So I think holding Bitcoin in your own custody, it is a solution. It is, I think, the best option to get yourself out of the system and to get your money out of the system, because our governments have been very clear. There's a reason why the UK is attacking Bitcoin. There is a reason why the UK is talking about selling its 55,000 Bitcoin. There's a reason why Australia is also hostile to Bitcoin. That's why in Australia, banks all around the country are stopping transactions of people trying to move money from their bank to an exchange to buy Bitcoin, because they don't want you to use the escape valve. Christine Lagarde has said it very clearly. Bitcoin is the escape valve. But again, it's only an escape valve if you hold it in one of these, your very own hardware wallet. So I highly recommend you check those out. And again, once you do get a hardware wallet, I always tell you, paper is a shit coin. Please do not put your Bitcoin 12 or 24 words on paper. Put it onto titanium. I love these titanium plates that you guys can get from Stampseed. Again, there's a ton of stainless steel plates and backup storage solutions, and they're not bad. They're not bad, but they're not titanium. Titanium, I believe, is the industry standard, and they're going to give you 15% off anything you want to buy from Stampseed if you use a promo code Luke15. So again, I think all of these tools, hardware wallets, titanium plates, these are essential tools that you need if you want to protect yourself from what your government is doing, because they are coming, they're not slowing down, and they are honestly accelerating, which is why we're starting to see more and more insane policies like this help to buy scheme. And again, the devil is always in the detail and the framing. It's called the help to buy scheme, but it's really where the government, we're here to help get our hands in the mortgage market and start becoming the dominant owner of everything, where you literally have to rent your own home from the government. Again, that's the conspiratorial take, but I mean, the reality is right there. And this is why I believe it's really scary, because I think Australians, Brits, people all across the West, they're the proverbial frog in the pot of boiling water. And I don't think they understand the fact that they are boiling right now. And I just don't think it is going to slow down. I think it is only going to accelerate. This is why we're seeing so many millionaires leaving the UK right now. Before I show you one of my favorite quotes, what I want to show you is one of the most devastating charts I think I've ever seen. So there's 1.5 billion people in China, right? A lot of people. There's a lot of millionaires in China. Guess how many people live in the UK? It's about 60 to 70 million people last time I checked. And you know what's kind of insane? Right now, there is more millionaires leaving the UK than there is China. Think about how absurd that is. China is openly a communist country. They have capital controls, and they don't want their people to get their money out of the country. This is all public information. No speculation, no tinfoil hat. I knew I have it somewhere here. I don't have it on me right now. And the UK right now, millionaires are more scared of living in that country, and they're leaving that country faster. Again, this is again why I just think, guys, you need to look after yourself while you still can. It's reminding me of one of my favorite quotes in history. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unions. I did not speak out because I was not a unionist. I can't read the next line of that quote, but you know what it says. And then finally, they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. This is how I believe the next 10 years is going to shake out in Australia. Eventually, you're going to see bedroom taxes. You're going to see bathroom taxes. You're going to even see a backyard tax. You're going to see it all. You're going to see 30% taxes on retirement accounts. You're going to see 80% taxes on retirement accounts. Even more recently, I found some shocking data where people were talking about 100% taxes on inheritance accounts. Like, I'm not going to break down that in today's video because I just want to talk a little bit more about solutions today. I might talk about that scary problem in another video. But what I will say is, let's be solution oriented. Buy Bitcoin, put it in your own custody so the government can't tax, track, or trace you. And then a lot of people will say, Luke, but I can't borrow against my Bitcoin. I can't get a loan against my Bitcoin. I can't eat my Bitcoin. It's kind of a useless asset. Well, I mean, that's not entirely true, especially if you actually understand how to use the asset, which is, again, why I like solutions like Firefish. Firefish is a Bitcoin peer-to-peer lending company that doesn't take custody of your Bitcoin, but they give you liquidity. So you can borrow against your Bitcoin with Firefish. I think they're a great option. I have a couple of loans with them. Super easy to use. They've been a partner of the channel because I use the product myself. I love the product myself, and it's going to be something I use a little bit more in this Bitcoin bull run. So again, they're even going to give you 30% off if you use a promo code Luke. Again, 30% off if you use a promo code Luke. I think they're another great solution to help you escape what the UK and Australia is doing. If you want to learn more about their attack on your money, I'm going to put 2 recent videos up on screen for you to check out. And with all that said, I'll see you